Hi everybody, welcome back to another MyTutor online school tutorial. So today GCSE Maths and we're looking at SUVAT equations. So I'll go over more what that is, but especially looking at substituting values into equations. So this is me, Molly, who's running the session. Just finished my second year studying computer science and maths at Bath, and I've done lots and lots of lessons with MyTutor, including lots of these now. This is my 45th, so very exciting. But yeah, hopefully that means this will be a smooth session and I know what I'm doing. So a couple of things. First of all, we always do a Kahoot at the beginning of the session and a different one at the end that's of like a similar standard, just so that we have a gauge. It helps me to know what I'm doing, where to pitch it at and what to work more on. So I'll explain more about what we're doing today whilst you're joining the Kahoot. So just go to kahoot.it, or there's an app as well that you can use. Throughout this lesson, do use the chat and Q&A function on Zoom as much as you like. It helps me to know where we're at, that everybody's following and understanding and knowing what to do for the questions and stuff like that. So that really helps me. And yeah, so there are a lot more than one of you. So, okay, there we go. I was going to say, do join if you can. Cool. So SUVAT equations today, if you have no idea what on earth that means, don't worry at all. So I don't actually know how many people have this on their specification, but it's good for a couple of reasons. So I never actually learned it until physics and using them properly at A-level, really. So we're not going to be looking into too much detail at them, at the actual equations. So the main things we'll be covering today are kind of how to substitute into equations to solve things. So we're not going to look at having to memorize the equations or anything like that. They're basically just a set of equations. It's like speed, distance, time equations, but a step up. So even more stuff that we can calculate with them. So I'll be telling you what the equations are and like what all the letters stand for. And then you guys will kind of have to learn how to select the correct information from the question and put it in, basically. It'll make more sense once we get going. So this first Kahoot might be really, really difficult if you have no idea what I'm on about, but we'll give it a go and see. So about half of you are here in the Kahoot. So just pop a message on the chat or Q&A if you're still waiting. If not, we can get going. You can definitely tell schools, okay, someone's still waiting, that's fine. You can definitely tell that school's almost done and it's nice weather outside by the number of people who want to do maths. Okay, I'm just going to give it a couple more minutes. So whilst I'm waiting, could you let me know in the chat, let me know whether or not you know what SUVAT equations are. Have you heard of them? Do you know that you're about to cover them? Like, are they on your spec? Have you never heard of them? Just let me know. It's just useful so that I know what to focus on more. Okay, someone says they're about to cover them. Cool, that's useful. Haven't done them before. No, never heard of them. Someone says one of the online schools class is finishing. I don't know, we'll keep you updated. Someone says they have seen SUVAT equations before. Interesting, okay, so it's quite a mix. That's what I expected it to be. Yes, but it's been a long time, yeah. So these are the kind of things I expected, a real mix. So, because it completely depends on the exam board, what level you're at, whether you're in year 9 or year 11. Okay, so no one else has joined the Kahoot, so I'm gonna start, but I'll keep the room unlocked. So you can join, you'll just miss the first question or so. So don't worry if you haven't joined yet, but let's get going. Only 5 questions. And as I said, don't worry if you don't know at all. So what does the U stand for in SUVAT? Now, if you've never come across them before, you won't know this at all. And it's a very quick answer question, so just go with your gut. Yeah, some people didn't get a chance to answer that one. They are quite quick because they're just, do you know it or not, really? There's not too much to think about. Yeah, the U is the initial velocity. And if you have no clue what that means, that's totally fine. We're going to be looking at that in a moment. So this one, everybody should be able to have a go at, even if you've never seen it before. So we've been given an equation in terms of some letters, and we want to find what A is, given V, U, and T. So this is a substitution question. So give it a go. Even if you've never seen SUVAT before, you should be able to do this one, or know what to do, if that makes sense. That's most people. I'll let it go down to 0 because it normally skips if everyone's answered, so somebody might have joined since the beginning. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, interesting. So a really difficult one there. Well done to the one person who got it. So we'll have a look. In fact, we'll go over this. I'll just save that there so that we can go over this exact question once we start. So here's another one. Maybe this one's slightly easier because you don't have to do any rearranging. So we're just looking for S using that equation there. So we've got U, T, and A. Substitute them in and see if you can get S. Don't worry if you don't know how to do that, but you don't need to know SUVAT equations to be able to do it, if that makes sense. So again, I'll let the timer go all the way down. Brilliant. Well done, guys. Yeah. So again, we'll have a look at questions similar to that once we go through everything. Now, these last two questions are going to be quite difficult because if you don't know what formula to use, then it's not going to be as easy as before. So this is only if you know the SUVAT equations, really. So we've got a distance, an acceleration, a speed and acceleration, and a time, and we want to know what the distance traveled is. So if you don't know SUVAT equations, this is going to be difficult. Someone's asked how to join. You see this game pin at the bottom, 9085821. If you go to kahoot.it online, or there's a Kahoot app, and pop that pin in, you'll be able to join for the last question. Okay, I'll skip this one when it gets down to 20, just because before, when it got to 7, there were no more that came in. Okay, interesting. Yeah, also a really, really difficult one there. We're going to have a look at some really similar ones to that. This one's going to be similar as well. If you don't know the right equation, then you won't be able to do it. But what we're going to do is I'm going to teach you all of the equations and really encourage you to take a photo or refer to them. I'm not going to make you memorize them. So by the end, you should have a picture with all of these equations on and know how to use them and what values mean what and what to put in and stuff. So this lesson isn't about memorizing them. It's just about being able to use them and find the right information and substitute values in. That's the main thing that this lesson is about. Okay. I'll let this timer go all the way down. It's the last question anyway. Okie doke. So let's see. Okay, cool. Looks like that was probably a guessing question as well, which is totally what I was expecting. So this is just to give you an idea of the kind of stuff that you will be able to answer by the end of today. So well done to Jeremy, Emma, and 4 out of 5. That's really, really good. Square root of -1 equals I. Nice, awesome. Yeah, well done, guys. So let's have a look, as we normally do, at 31%, exactly what I was expecting. These are really difficult when you haven't learned them. So let's see if we can get that up by the end of the lesson. So, okay, let's get started. The first thing that I want to start with is, before we even introduce the equations at all, substitutions such as this question that we got here. So this was one of the questions in that Kahoot. So using v equals u plus 80, find a when v is 8, u is 2, and t is 0.5. So with these ones, I would really encourage you not to rearrange the letters, but instead to put in the numbers first and then rearrange. So if we literally just substitute in what we have here. So let's start with, so v, we know is 8. So 8 equals, and then u, we know is 2. So 2 plus, well, a is just a, and t is 0.5. So it's a times 0.5, or I'm going to call it 0.5a. And now we've got an algebraic equation that looks much nicer to solve. So 8 equals 2 plus 0.5a. So now we want to get a by itself. So the first thing that I would do is literally just this. I've said it before, it's like a non-step really. So I write it in grey. We just reverse the way that the equation is written. Just did it again. So I've just I've swapped what side of the equals sign they're on. That's all I've done. Then we can subtract 2 from both sides to see that 0.5a is 6. And then divide each side by 0.5 to find that a is 12. And once we look at this, we'll see that this is the unit for acceleration, but we'll look at that in a bit. But you can ignore the units really and see that a is 12. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't. So what about using let's use the same one, v equals u plus at. Find t when v equals 10, u equals 2, and a equals 5. So what do you think there? Have a go at that and let me know on the chat or the Q&A what you get as your answer there. Cool. So only one person's replied, but I don't know whether that's because people aren't sure or whether they're still doing it and I want to leave it too long. So I'll start going through it, but feel free to chime in even if I haven't finished going through it. So all we're going to do here is the same thing that we did before. So just match them up and substitute them in. So this time 10. I'll stop doing the color coding after a couple, but I think it helps to start with. 10 equals 2 plus 5t. So then we do this non-step where we just make sure that our unknown is on the left. So 2 plus 5t equals 10. Subtract 2 from both sides, and then divide both sides by 5. And you'll see that when you put this into a calculator, this will give you 1.6. So hopefully those make sense in terms of using an equation to substitute in. Let me know in the chat, do you want me to go over any more of these before I move on? We'll still have to do stuff like this throughout as part of like a longer step process. But do you want me to go over any more of these? Okay, someone said that makes sense. Someone said, well, okay, I'll go over one more to consolidate, but it seems to be making sense. I'll go over one using a different equation to substitute stuff in, mix it up again. So this time let's use one that's a bit more complicated. So S equals ut plus half a t squared. So this time, let's say that we want to find u. So this one's going to be a bit more complicated. Not too much more though. When S equals 12, t equals 6, and a equals 2. So have a go at that one and see what you get for u there. Again, I'll give you a couple of minutes to have a go. Okay, I don't think anyone has replied yet. I'll leave it a bit longer. Shout if you've done like a little bit but don't know where to go from there. Also let me know, just pop wherever you're up to in the chat and we'll have a look. Cool, so people are getting somewhere with it. He's doing parts of it, which is really, really good. Okay, cool. So I'll start to go through it. Again, feel free to pop your answer in whilst I'm still going. So I'm gonna again do the highlighting, the kind of color coding part. So we have 12 equals, so u is what we're looking for, t, so that's 6, so we'll call that 6u, plus, now half is just a half in the question, then a is 2, and t, as we've already underlined, is 6, so we square that. So you're just dropping the letters that we have, just substituting them in. And now we can simplify this for ourselves. So 12 equals 6u plus, now half times 2 is 1, times that by 6 squared, 36. So I did that quite quickly, but hopefully that makes sense. That's just combining some numbers. Now let's do the kind of flipping part just to get our u on the left-hand side to make it nicer for ourselves. Then subtract 36 from both sides to get u by itself. So 12 minus 36, that's minus 24. And then divide both sides by 6. So u there is minus 4. So hopefully that makes sense. That was a slightly trickier one than before, just because there's more to substitute, but it's exactly the same process. You just substitute stuff in and it becomes an algebraic equation. So hopefully that makes sense. But as I said, this is like the final stage of the questions that we'll be looking at. So yeah, we will be doing more of this just as part of something else. Okay, so let's introduce the SUVAT equations and what on earth they are. So as I said at the start, they're kind of speed, distance, time equations, but there's more to them. So for example, speed, distance, time doesn't account for acceleration. You know, at what rate are you speeding up? It also doesn't account for if it's just a section of the journey. So for example, you have an initial speed and a final speed. So these account for those. So they're these that I have here. So this is the page that you should take a screenshot of, take a photo of, keep with you for the rest of the lesson, because these are the equations that we will be using. Now, let's have a look at these. Some fancy words here, but they're really not all that scary, and we'll see this through some questions in a moment. So S here we use for displacement, and that means distance. The reason that we call it displacement is like how velocity is speed, but in a direction. Displacement is distance, but in a direction. So if I walk 1 meter this way, and then go back to my starting point and walk 1 meter in the other way, that's the same thing as -1 meter. So displacement is in terms of a direction. So you can have negatives basically. U is the initial velocity and V is the final. So like I said, we might just see a snapshot of the journey of something. So say for example, this is how speeding cameras work. They might see the speed at the start, the speed at the end, see the difference, stuff like that. Or yeah, if we're just looking for a snapshot and want to see the time between and stuff like that. And acceleration, this is how fast, how quickly we are increasing. So if you're accelerating, then your speed here will be quicker than your speed at the beginning. So if you're accelerating, your speed is increasing. And if you're decelerating, so that's negative acceleration, your speed is decreasing. That's all that is. And time is time. Nothing fancy about that one. So these will make sense once we apply them to some word questions. In terms of the units that we use, I'll write these on here as well. Don't worry if you don't exactly follow the units, because as I said, this is more physics once we get onto the unit side of things, but it's still helpful because maths and physics do tie a lot together. And this is really helpful if you do any mechanics units, especially at A level. So displacements, that's distance, that's just in meters. Velocities, that's meters per second. And we can either write it like this or like this. They both mean the same thing. Acceleration is meters per second squared. So either meters like that or like that, and time is just in seconds. So if you hear me using those units, that's what I mean. The main thing though is the whole substitution thing and interrupting word questions. So don't get too caught up with this, basically. So I'm going to keep these on here whilst I do most of the questions, because as I said, I do not want this to be about memorizing. I want it to be about picking out the right one to use and stuff like that. So let's jump in with an example. So here is number 1. So let me just, get rid of these units here. They're in the way a bit. Okay, so the car accelerates from 10 meters per second to 30 meters per second in 5 seconds. What is its acceleration? Now there's a standard way that we answer all of these, which I think makes it super useful. As soon as you see acceleration, speed, time, any of these words, you know it's going to be SUVAT. So we're going to write out those letters. So SUVAT. Then we're going to fill in what we know. So it accelerates from 10 meters per second to 30 meters per second in 5 seconds. So the initial speed is 10, the final speed is 30, and it did that in 5 seconds. So the time taken is 5 seconds. And we want to know what its acceleration is, so that we put a question mark there. Now let's have a look at the things that we want to use in this equation. It's U, V, A, and T. So basically we want one of these equations that doesn't have S in it. So which equation do you think we'll use? Pop it on the chat. Cool. Yeah, a couple of people have got it already, which is fantastic. Yeah, people are getting it. Brilliant. So we're going to use this first one here, v equals u plus at. So then it becomes a substitution question. We've just had to find the information ourselves from a word question. But once we've done this, it is no different to these questions like this one. It just becomes that. We, in fact, are looking for a here as well. So we've got all of our values here. We know that we want to use v equals u plus at. So give it a go, find a, substitute in those values and see what you think. If you pop them in the chat, I'll reply to you and let you know whether you're right or not. I'll just give it a minute or so. Okay. That's most people who will answer. Perfect. So yeah, we just substitute our values in here. So v, that's 30, equals u plus a t. Well, we don't know a, but t is 5. 30 equals 10 plus 5t. Subtract 10 from both, well, swap them around first. 10 plus 5t equals 30. Subtract 10 from both sides. And then divide by 5. And you get t equals 4. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, these questions that we saw in the Kahoot were just like this. So the only extra step from substituting is that you just have to choose the equation and work out what the values are. So they're not that scary at all. So what about this one? So I'll pop the question on there and I'll also pop our SUVAT equations on. I'll always keep these on because I really don't want to make this about memorizing them. No need. I mean, you do if you do physics and stuff, and maybe you do for your exams, but regardless, we'll have them here for this lesson. So first of all, who can, like, what are some of the values? You know, do we have S, U, V, A, T? Like, which ones do we have, do you think? Okay, I'll just go through this. So we want to write down SUVAT, as we always do, and go through and just read this one thing at a time. So an aircraft was traveling at a speed of 60 meters per second when it landed on a runway. It took 2 minutes to stop, so that's 120 seconds. And because it stops, that means that it slows down and comes to a speed of 0. So it took 2 minutes to get from 60 to 0. And we want to calculate the acceleration. So hopefully it makes sense where I got all of those values there. So now the acceleration we know is going to be a negative number because it's going to be slowing down. It's decreasing its speed. So we can see yet again that the one that we don't have is S. So we'll choose V equals U plus AT. So give it a go. What do you think this one is? Again, I'll reply to you letting you know whether you're right or not. Okay. Okay, I'll go through this one. Possibly a bit trickier because of the presence of the negative. So we'll fill in everything that we have. So V, that's 0, equals U plus AT. So 120A. Now let's swap it around so that what we want is on the left. 60 plus 120A equals 0. Subtract 60 from both sides. 120A equals minus 60. And divide both sides by 120. A equals minus 0.5. There you go. And this will be meters per second squared. So you've got to fill it in like that. Cool. So well done. A lot of people, at least, even the answers that were wrong, I could tell where they went wrong. Like it was super close. So yeah, well done. Let's have a look at the next one. So hopefully, even if these aren't questions that you have seen before, like even if you don't, your example doesn't cover SUVAT, these are still super useful to go over because every exam board will have substitution and word questions and stuff. So it's really useful to know. So traveling at a velocity of 25 meters per second when the engine is turned off. So we want to calculate how far the car will travel before coming to a rest if the deceleration is 1.47. So a tricky one again, but once you lay it out all right, it's not too bad. So if you don't understand this at all and want to just wait until I put up what the values are and what equation to use, and you just want to practice your substitution, that's a really good use of this lesson as well. So you can just wait until I pop that up and then give that a go. But can anybody think of what some of these values would be? Do we know S, U, V, A, or T? And if so, what are they? Cool, a couple of people have said some really good parts. So first two things that have been said. So let's, as always, write this out. Someone said that we're looking for S. That's perfect. We're looking for the distance, how far it will travel. Someone else said that U is 25 meters per second. And that's also perfect. That's it starts traveling at that velocity. So, got another message, let me just check. A is 1.47, really close. Only thing you've got to be careful of is negatives. So because it's a deceleration, A is actually negative 1.47. And the only other thing that we know is that it comes to a rest. So it finishes at 0. Just a second. Cool. So now what we have is S, U, V, and A. So we've got to choose the equation that doesn't have T in it. So which equation do you think we'll use? You can just tell me a number. So we'll call these 1, 2, 3. Ooh, 1, 2. I'm writing too close to the edge, so it thinks I'm zooming out. 4 and 5. So which number of equation will we use? Yeah, brilliant. Everyone immediately said equation 2. Perfect. So we'll use V squared equals U squared plus 2AS. So give it a go. Fill in what you think. Now, I don't actually have the answer, so I won't be able to tell you if you're right, but give it a go and you'll find out at the end whether or not you are. In fact, I'll try to do it on my phone so that you can't see and work it out myself. But yeah, give it a go. And if this is the point where you're or you're only just tuning in now, have a go at this. Have a go at this substitution. Don't worry about how we got there, but have a go at substituting those values into that equation and see what you get. And I'll do the same thing. Okay, I think I have the answer, so I'll let you know now. Let's see, pop in the chat. Okay, let's go through this now. So a tricky one this, but that's okay. So let's just fill in the values that we have. It's exactly the same as we have been doing before. So fill in V. Let's do this in blue. So V squared equals U squared plus 2 times A times S. Let's simplify that down. 0 squared is 0. 25 squared is... Oh, I've said no to people. I've just realized that I've worked out incorrectly. So you might have been right. I did 25 squared as 15 squared. So 25 squared is in fact 625. And then 2 times minus 1.47 is minus 2.94. So now this is what we have. 0 equals 625 minus 2.94s. So we don't even have to change sides this time because we can just add 2.94s to both sides and we've got our s over there. So 2.94s equals 625. Then to get s by itself, we just have to do 625 divided by 2.94 and we get 212.58. So to the nearest meter, that's 213. So hopefully that makes sense as to how we did it, and it seems fairly okay now. So yeah, a couple of people did get that towards the end, which is brilliant. If there's a specific bit that you guys are struggling with, just let me know and I can go through that bit again. Whether it's the labeling, the SUVAT, or choosing the equation or substituting, do let me know. But until then, we'll just keep going through questions because that's the best way to learn how to do these things, I think. Okay. So, okay, let's have a look at this. And again, let's pop on. Okay, so first step as usual, fill in SUVAT. What do we have? Let me know in the chat. Do you know any of the ones that we have? What do you think they could be? If you're not sure, just put maybe which letter do you think we're looking for, or just any of the information that we have. Just give it a go. Just helps me to know that you guys are following at least slightly. Perfect. Okay. So someone said that we're looking for acceleration. So that's exactly right. So we can pop our question mark there. That's at least the question started. What else do we have? So what's S? So S is the displacement, remember? So how far does our skateboarder move? Yeah, brilliant. It's 25 meters. What is U? So what's the speed that the skateboarder starts from? Bit of a tricky one, this one, because it doesn't explicitly say it. So someone's put 12.2, which is a really, really good guess. 12.2 is what the skateboarder finishes at. So that will be V, our final velocity. The sneaky thing here is that this just says that he starts from rest. So that means the starting velocity is 0. So he starts from rest, goes down, and finishes with a velocity of 12.2. So sneaky that, but generally if 0 will kind of easily appear if even if it's not like explicitly stated in the question. So now we can see we don't have t, so we'll be using exactly the same one as before, v squared equals u squared plus 2as. And we're looking for a again. Oh no, last time we were looking for s, weren't we? So we're looking for a this time. So give it a go. What do you think? Yeah, start it off and see where you get to. We'll just do this question and then we'll go to the Kahoot, because what I'll do is the final 2 questions are also word questions, so I'll go through those themselves. Someone said, which exam board is it? That's a really good question, actually. I'm genuinely not 100% sure which exam boards have this. As I said, every exam board has substitution. So every exam board could have questions like at the beginning where it says using v equals u plus at, substitute in these things. But I don't think every exam board has this, like specifically the SUVAT equations, but as I said, I'm not 100% sure, I'm afraid. Okay, cool. Let's go through this one. So, as usual, we just fill in the things. So v squared, so 12.2 squared equals u squared plus 2 times a, well, we'll put a at the end, or, well, no, we'll put it 2 times a times s. Tidy it up. So 12.2 squared is 148.84 equals, well, 0 squared is just 0, so we're just adding this, so 50a. Swap round the sides that they're written on and divide each side by 50. 148.84 divided by 50 gives us 2.9768, or 2.98, let's go for, meters per second squared, because it's acceleration. Yeah, a couple of people got that, which is fantastic. So really, really, really well done. So let's go ahead and do the Kahoot. Different questions. Hopefully I haven't included any that we've just done there. I can't remember, I made it a few days ago, so I guess we'll see. But we'll just see if it becomes any easier now that we've gone through the stuff. So here's the game pin, kahoot.it or on the Kahoot app. And whilst people are joining, does anybody have any questions? Are there any particular bits that people are struggling with? Just let me know. No one's asked any questions, so hopefully that means that it all makes sense, or at least some sort of sense. I'll just give it another minute or so for people to join. Someone's asked, so with this topic, are we expected to learn 5 equations and then substitute? Yeah, pretty much. I can't remember. I think for some exam boards, if it's on there, you get given those equations. But I know that like at A level, you'd have to learn them and stuff like that. But yeah, so it's about knowing the equations, substituting and picking them. Yeah. Gosh, we had 7 players a moment ago and now we have 4. People might be changing their names, I think. Okay. Is anybody still waiting to join? There were 7 at the beginning, so I know, I mean, there are more people than that actually here, so. It's 19 of you here and only 8 in the Kahoot. I mean, that's okay, you don't have to play the Kahoot. Okay, I'll get started. Speak now if you're still waiting. Someone says their computer lags whenever they go on Kahoot. Yeah, that makes sense. No problem. Okay, that's totally fine. Let's just get started. I've left it open, so the pin's at the bottom there, so you can join throughout. So, first question, what does the S stand for in SUVAT? So when we fill that in, what is that? Now be quite careful. This is, there's a kind of tricky one in there. Oh, look at that. Well done, guys. Perfect. Yeah, it's the displacement. I wondered if anybody would put distance, but nobody felt that. Displacement, because it can be negative. Awesome. Okay. Now we've just got a substitution. So using V equals U plus AT, find V when we've got U is 4, A is 3, T is 6. So hopefully I might stop this before the end because it seems like almost everybody has answered now. Ah, perfect. Oh, well done, guys. Awesome. Yeah, so because we're looking for V, we substitution U, A, and T. So we do 4 plus 3 times 6. So 4 plus 18, which is 22. Brilliant. Really, really good job. Okay, one equation that we didn't actually use in this one. So S is 0.5 times U plus V. All of that times by T. We want to find S. So again, just another substituting them in. That link that has just been put in the chat, by the way, I'm going to be explaining once we finish the Kahoot what that is and what that's about. So. Just copy this question so that I can go through it if you want to. Oh, brilliant. Loads of people got that. Awesome. So the reason is because so U plus V is 9, 0.5 of that is 4.5, and then times that by T. So 4.5 times 8. So awesome. Well done. I won't go through that one because it was really well answered. These ones I will. So this, we're going to have a word question. We want to know what's the speed of the ball when it hits the ground. So it's dropped from rest. Think about what that means. From a building 35 meters high. When it says if air resistance is neglected, that just means you don't have to account for air. Just ignore that really. So what speed will it hit the ground with? Now, the other thing that you will actually need to know here is that acceleration there will be minus 9.8. And that's because that is the acceleration due to gravity because it's just falling. So remember that A is minus 9.8. Or actually it might be 9.8 if you count that way as positive. 9.8 is the value that you need to use. Does So I'll pop that on the chat in case anybody missed that. A equals 9.8. So that is something that you do need to know for physics, but you don't need to know it for maths. So you might, that's what I'm telling you. Okay, almost there. Okay, difficult one that clearly. Okay, let's have a go at it on here. Okay, so let's remember our SUVAT equations as well. So these are where this screenshot comes in very handy. So we've got S, U, V, A, and T. So what do we have? S, it's 35 meters high. U, well, it's dropped from rest. We want to know what speed it hits the ground at. And A, as I told you, is 9.8. So we're going to use the one without T. So V squared equals U squared plus 2AS. So V squared is 0 squared plus 2 times 9.8 times 35. So V squared equals, let's have a look at this, 2 times 9.8 times 35. V squared is 686. So V is the square root of that. So 26. Don't know how many decimal points it did it to here. 26.2. Yeah, so hopefully you can see where that comes from now. Let me know if you still have any questions about that. That was a hard question, but it's just a case of filling in what we know, substituting it into this equation that we choose here. So let's have a look at our final question. So remember again, A is going to be 9.8. So a freely falling object on Earth has a speed of 5 meters per second. So it starts with a speed of 5, then it falls 20 meters more. We know what its acceleration is. What's its speed going to be there? So fill in SUVAT, choose your equation, substitute them in. So these questions are difficult. And as I said, they're not on every exam board. So don't worry if you don't exactly follow. The really, really good thing from today is that we got almost 100% in all of the substitution questions, which is fantastic because that's the main thing, because that's in every single exam board. So that's really, really good. Okay, I'll let this timer go down to the end because we do actually have time. Okay, difficult one again that. So let's pop this in here. Have a look at it here. So let's pop our SUVAT equations on again. So let's see. SUVAT. Right. It starts with a speed of 5. It falls a further 20 meters. We want to know what it ends up as. And we know that acceleration is 9.8, as I said. So we're going to use this equation again. V squared equals U squared plus 2AS. Fill it all in. So V squared, again, what we're looking for, equals U squared plus 2 times A times S. Tidied up, V squared equals 25 plus, then let's look here, 2 times 9.8 times 20, 392. So V squared equals 417. So V equals root of that. So root 20.42, which was the correct answer on here, or 20, so would be the closest. So hopefully that makes sense. Cool. A couple of people have said that that makes sense now, which is really good. And as I said, I'm not fazed at all by the fact that those questions were didn't score as highly, because I was expecting that. What I'm really impressed with was how well everyone picked up the substitution element of things. So well done. So 4 out of 5 in first place, which is fantastic. So well done. Again, square root of -1 equals I. Fantastic work. Well done. So let's just have a look. 33%. It did still go up from the beginning, so that's really good. So yeah, that brings us to the end of the lesson. So one thing that I want to mention before we finish is a new exciting thing coming from MyTutor, which are going to be launching in the last week of June. So if you find these large group sessions really useful, and this is definitely something that you should check out, these small group courses. So they're for up to 6 students only. So they're way more interactive. You can ask questions. It feels much more bridges the gap towards a one-on-one session, basically. So you can chime in whenever you want. And again, they're weekly 1-hour sessions, just like these are at the moment. And that link that's been popped in the chat there, if you check that out, you can see the information about it here. Sign up, book a course, drop-ins for it and everything like that. So yeah, I'd recommend checking them out if you found these useful. So the ones that we have coming up are physics, GCSE, and an introduction to A-level. So yeah, the other thing is that if you found these useful, MyTutor offers loads of one-on-one tutoring, so check out the website for that. Loads of students such as myself offer one-on-one support if that's something that you think yeah, you'd be interested in. So look at that, I've even finished a minute early today, way better than usual. I don't even have a maths joke for today. I've tried to look some up. Don't even have one off the top of my head. Failed myself. Here we go. Here I found. What did the triangle say to the circle? You're so pointless, because it doesn't have any points. If you guys want the joke standard to improve, you've got to send me some, because mine are not good. Okay, thank you all for coming today. Check out the small group tutorials and MyTutor's individual tutorials. This session will be on YouTube, on the MyTutor YouTube channel. So if you want to watch it again, go for it. Really good work today, and I'll see you all next week. Thank you.